Something that I actually thought was pretty informative, and it's not something I had thought of before, but you're 100% correct, is the vernacular around the 30 visits that teams are allowed. You
Hmm.
kind of made a point to say, look, I keep seeing people refer to them as top 30 visits, and that's
Right.
not what they are. Explain that.
They the understanding that people need to have is that each team is allowed 30 visits. Okay. So they get to bring 30 people into their facilities and answer any questions really that they may have about that player, whether they be medical. Hey, look, how is he on the whiteboard?
Right.
How is he going to really jibe with our culture? Those types of things. And people will call it a top 30 visit as if these are the top 30 prospects that they have on their draft board, and it's just a misnomer. That is a bad term to use, because quite frankly, if you really want to know what the 30 visits are used for a lot in the NFL, it's to throw out some smoke and mirrors
Right.
to other teams as to who they may or may not be interested in. So if you're really looking at it from the standpoint of the very top of the draft to the guys who are possibly going to be late rounders or undrafted free agents, then you may see some of those. But everybody else coming in there, you don't know anything about why they
Why they're
are
being brought
there.
in. Right.
They could literally just be to throw other teams off. And the bottom line is top 30 visits in their use for the team themselves is
Mm.
to answer questions. If they don't have questions, they can draft a guy in the first round like they did in 22 who never had a top 30 visit.
I mean, Brian's literal first pick ever, Jair Alexander, didn't take a visit. They barely spoke to him throughout the draft process, right? And I remember
Right.
talking to Brian about this a couple of years ago at the combine, where he said, he is not very different, but a little different than Ted in this regard, because with Ted, it was almost all undrafted and or late round guys that they had questions on, maybe some medical stuff. And I remember he said one time Ted got mad because they brought in a quarterback who was going to be drafted like in the kind of middle of the draft, was projected to go like third, fourth round. And Ted got
Mhm.
pissed because they had burned a visit on one of these guys where he liked to only bring in, late round,
Right.
undraftable dudes. And
Right. Right.
Brian has been a little more kind of, I'm not going to say aggressive, but a little more, I think, to your point, using it as a tool to, yes, gather information, but also maybe throw people off the scent a little bit as far as some of the guys who are projected to go earlier in the draft. He'll
Right.
definitely bring them in. He has done that over the course of his tenure, but a lot of times he has no plans whatsoever of drafting some of these guys. I love the gamesmanship.